All right, guys. Well, hey, welcome to the TAW University. This is our second leadership boot camp. The first was a little impromptu by myself a couple weeks ago, and now this one here is much less of an impromptu with Icarus, and he is going to be talking about the Code of Ethics. But before we begin with that, there's a couple things I want to talk about. I want to reiterate again, kind of like I did last week, why we have the TAW University. And you heard all of us guys that were running for the CIC back during the CIC elections. You heard us talk a lot. Hold on one second. You heard us talking a lot about building leadership in TAW, and that is without a doubt for leadership. The upper leadership, the guys up in Central Command and so forth. That is without a doubt one of our biggest goals, and the TAW University is the platform that we have to do that. It's one of the platforms, but it's really becoming probably the best platform we have for that as well. Something that I want to share with you guys. I'm going to be sending out some emails. All of you guys will be getting some of these emails over the next few days. We're changing the way that I present the dashboard, first of all, and I'll talk more about that through email and so forth. But there's a few key things I want to share from this past month, June, that dashboard. And this directly relates to where we are as a leadership team, and really reflects on the work you guys that are here that are already in leadership are doing. And just a couple numbers I want to throw out there. First of all, in June we had a 96% unit strength rating, which basically means 96% of all the member accounts we have were active members. Now that's a pretty good number. We've actually done better than that before, but here's what's really astounding about that number, guys. We had the largest number ever of active members in TAW. We had 907 active members. That's the most I've ever seen in the time that I've been in TAW. We had 943 total member accounts. Now that's not counting when I say total member accounts, I'm not referring to accounts that have not gone through Bootcamp. That is a huge amount. Again, we've never seen numbers like that before. We averaged, the first quarter of this year, guys, we averaged 784 total accounts. This past quarter, 822 total accounts. And the point I'm getting to here, guys, is that we're growing. As our leadership grows, TAW is going to grow. But through the TAW University, we have to make sure that we are preparing you guys to take on that new responsibility. So, hey, whoever's mic that is that's open, please, whoever's mic that is that's open that keeps blaring up, just remove them from channel, whoever can catch that. As we grow in size with members, our leadership has to grow not only in size to be able to handle it in those regards, but it has to be able to grow in our abilities. Individually as leaders, we have to be able to grow in our skills to meet that demand, and that's what the TAW University is here to do. It's bringing guys like Icarus and Sooner and myself and others in TAW that have displayed the skills and the leadership to do what needs to be done in TAW. It brings these guys to the table to help you guys that are either in leadership now and are in your early stages of development, or you're at a point in TAW where you're wanting to learn how to become a leader in TAW. That's what the TAW University is all about, and I'm glad to see all you guys here today, and greatly looking forward to hear what Icarus says. So on that note, I will shut up and let Icarus have it.
Thanks, Hook. I'm gonna try to break my own mold here and keep the boring stuff pretty brief and give folks plenty of time for questions. And so without further ado, we'll jump right in. Again, the link to the presentation I'm going over is in the channel description, and so let's kick it off. The purpose of this TAW University was to talk more about the Code of Ethics, and I've entitled it Behind the Code of Ethics, Advanced Concepts in Critical Thinking, for the reason of what I'll get into. the goal of this today is really to kind of wade through the obvious stuff, okay, and analyze some of the more advanced concepts that are buried in the Code of Ethics. And what I mean by that is reading between the lines or behind the lines, or at least understanding why something is in there. Because in a lot of cases, it's not very obvious why something's in there. And so we're going to try to dig a little bit behind some of that stuff and think critically about it. Also, in order to do that, what I've done is basically ask some key questions about each of the COE topics, or most of the COE topics. I skipped a couple of them. I'm not going to do the well, we do it just because, or because it's bad. We're way beyond that here. I'm trying to drill into some of the more advanced concepts. Okay. And basically, my goal is to empower you guys to live the COE in your activities. And what I mean is to understand it, to live it. You can't follow the COE unless you really understand why we have the COE. Nor can you push on your membership to follow the COE if you don't know why something may be in there, because you may be asked or you may be pushed, and that's normal and that's healthy. But you have to have a good answer for that, or at least understand and be able to articulate why we do something. Also, I want to show you guys some of the behind-the-scenes thought processes and leadership topics, because, there's a lot more discussion that goes on in TAW behind the day-to-day stuff, about, growing divisions and recruiting and all that stuff. There's some more fundamental stuff at the TFO level and the CCO level or CC level that's more fundamental to who we are and where we're going as an organization. And that's a lot of what this stuff is all about. A couple really quick comments on process and rules here. I am going to try to work my way through the whole COE, and we're going to spend more time on some topics than others. And I can guarantee you guys are not going to agree with everything I say, okay? We're all, as I said here, we're all adults here. We will not agree on everything, okay? And what I'm saying is drawing on my own experiences and the words of others that contributed to this presentation, okay? I will highly encourage you guys to ask questions throughout this. Please do, okay? And I'll do what I can to answer you. But definitely break, follow calm protocols so we're not talking over each other. And I will ask you to wait if I think I'm going to cover it, or I think if we're spending 20 minutes on one topic and we're going to be here all afternoon, I will move on. But you're more than welcome to come see me afterwards, and we can keep the questions flowing. So if I don't get to it, just write it down, and we'll cover it at the end. And one more note on kind of some of this stuff. I am going to be pretty frank about some topics here. I mean, I think what's the point of having a TAW university if you're not going to speak honestly and openly about a topic? And you guys may be a little bit surprised about some of the things I talk about. You may go, huh? Or did he just say that? Because that's part about growing leadership is being honest and forthright and talking about what the challenges are, okay? Because you're going to hear some things and some viewpoints in here that you probably haven't heard before. And that's my hope is I can kind of encourage you to grow in your leadership and take on some more challenges and have more of an opportunity later in your TAW career to deal with some of these issues, okay? Well, without further ado, let's get cracking. The first topic I want to talk about is cheating and glitching. I think that, I asked kind of an obvious question here, and again, the purpose in asking this question is to dispense with the obvious, right? I mean, first two questions I asked about this is why do we not allow cheating or glitching, okay? And secondly, how do we determine if someone's cheating or glitching? That's even more complex question than the first one, I think. So let's jump in. Why don't we cheat and glitch in TAW, right? As I said at the beginning of the presentation, I'm going to very quickly dispense with the obvious, right? Oh, well, it's bad, or it takes away from other people's fun, okay? Oh, duh, right? Well, let's drill one level deeper, okay? Why do we not cheat here? Okay, one of the first reasons is, as a representative of TAW, it's basically like, you're out wearing think about in real life, you're wearing the jacket, with the emblem of the organization you represent, right? That's what your tags are. So if you're out collecting Christmas time and you're collecting, cash to support people in the holidays, and somebody comes up to the jar and only puts, a nickel in, and you punch them in the face, people are probably going to notice that, and your actions are going to reflect badly on that organization, much the same as if you're caught cheating wearing TAW tags. It's basically the same thing, a little less graphic, but the point's the same. You're a representative of the organization, and it's going to reflect badly, okay? And as a result, our reputation is always at stake, okay? You cause a problem while being associated with that organization, and we're all guilty by association, okay? So if somebody sees you do that, right, or sees you cheat, they're going to draw the conclusion that everybody else in this 900-plus member organization are cheaters. Is that conclusion fair? Of course not. But most of the stuff around that's not fair, okay? They're drawing a natural conclusion based on your actions, okay? Why do we not allow members to cheat? Well, think about it, right? As leaders, this is one of the few avenues we have to exert control over the membership to basically control our image, right? It's an image control mechanism, because if we can't control what people are doing as representatives of this organization, we're doomed. It's one of the few ways in which we can control the type of individuals that we allow into this place and allow represent us, right? If you think about it, if you're in a division, everybody in your division represents TAW, but you're also representing everybody else. So it's critical that we all abide by the same rules and not allow those membership in, okay? And fundamentally, and this is kind of the obvious, but it is a little bit deeper too. The mission, okay, if you go back to our mission statement, okay, it's to build the premier international online gaming organization through cooperative development as an independent community focused on structured gaming while holding paramount, and here it is, honor, friendship, loyalty, and fair play, right? Honor and fair play, if you cheat, you destroy that, okay? And you're destroying the linchpin or the underlying structure of who we are and what we do. And that's it in a nutshell, okay? So, but it's all those reasons wrapped up as one, and some of them are more obvious than others. And you ask somebody, well, why don't we cheat in TAW? They may go, well, because it's bad, and they're not drilling down to why we really don't do it. And that's what I wanted folks to understand. So, let's next hopping on. So now it gets even more complicated and more confused and more gray, right? And this has been a topic that's been discussed in TFO for months and is always an ongoing issue in TAW about how divisions, or how we as an organization manage cheaters, determine who's cheating, who's glitching, okay? The first point I want to make, and I think it's a really critical one, is that specifics don't cut it, okay? We run too many games on too many platforms to get specific, okay? And I wrote down here, scripts, configurations, UIs, oh my, the little takeoff from the from a very famous movie. Every game is different, right? Every game brings something else to the table. So in a lot of cases, the more we try to define, well, what's a cheat, what's a glitch, that may help out one unit, but it ends up confusing the issue for another unit, okay? And so there's no right or wrong answer in this, in that sometimes being specific is very helpful and sometimes being specific is not. And so a large part of looking at cheating and glitching is determining when being specific is advantageous for you and when it isn't, okay? And that's why if you look at our COE regulation on cheating, it's specific to a certain extent, but then it stops. And I think, one of the learnings, and again, there's other folks that feel different ways on this, but one of the learnings from the recent discussion on the discussion, the cheating discussion, is that specificity can be a hindrance to enforcement. And what I mean by that is the more specific you try to get, in many cases, the more troubling or more challenging enforcement becomes. And for a lot of folks that are analytical in their mindset and the way they look at issues, that will never be good enough. And I myself struggle with this issue in TAW, where it wasn't good enough. But, I think it's something that the divisions, continue to work towards defining their own rules and regs better. I had an interesting conversation with a division leader a week or so ago where I was explaining to him, hey, just because it's not in policy does not stop you from making specific rules and regs for your unit, and taking that rule one step further. And so that's something that, we always keep in mind in TAW, is that the code of ethics and the regs and the policy are to provide a baseline, not to provide you every rule for your division or how you should run your division, okay? Count, can you close your mic there, bud? You keep coming on. Okay, so when we talk about cheating or glitching, okay, there's really three generalities or three measures that I want to communicate to folks. And again, this is my personal opinion about how we determine cheats or glitches, okay? The first one is based on our own standards, okay? Our baseline definition of what constitutes a cheat or a glitch. Again, it's open. It's not perfect. It's open to interpretation. And for the reasons I just talked about, specificity can be its own downfall or its strength. But basically, we have a standard here, okay? And it's I guess you could call it the gut check standard as well, where you look at something, you go, that's not really right, okay? So as we get better at that, we learn more and more and more, and as leaders get more experience, their gut check gets better, okay? And that's part of it. It's the gut check, and it's the TAW check. If one division looks at something and goes, oh, man, I can't believe they do that, that might be an indication too. Not necessarily, but it might be, okay? Next one is community standards, right? What's acceptable in the community in which you play? Standards in one community are very different often than standards in another community. And again, if you're playing game X, right, your players are judged based on the community standards in game X, not in game Y. So looking at the community standards for game X is very important. If you ignore those community standards, you'll often find yourselves at odds with the community, especially if your standards are looser than the community standards. Then you've got a major issue because you're going to be branded as cheaters. If your standards are tighter than the community standards, you also may create a problem for yourself because, people in the community may say, oh, well, you're banning our people, on your servers for no reason. Maybe folks have run into that too. So there's a fine line to walk on community standards that you can't ignore them. They're a constant in the discussion. And the last one is developer standards, okay? What did the developers intend for a game to be played, or how did they intend for it to be played? If, there was a recent issue in WoW Division where there was an add-on that, people had been using that, was very common on the community, and all of a sudden Blizzard turned around and said, we never intended for you to be able to do this, and we're going to break this add-on. Well, even though they hadn't broken the add-on yet, the WoW leadership basically said, you know what, okay, fine, we're not using it, because the developers have made it very clear that they consider it to be not okay. And so that was where a division took a guidepost from developer intent. And so that's another really important measure when you're dealing with cheating, okay? And again, as I said here, applying all three in the correct proportion comes with experience. It's not one, it's not two, it's not three, it's all of them, okay? And applying them in the right ratio in the right way to handle a particular situation. Okay? Questions on cheating stuff?
Cheating's bad.
Cheating is bad, absolutely. Well, my hope is, in this, I've gotten you to think about it beyond cheating is bad, right? Cheating is bad because of these reasons. Because of the complexity of it, because of it adds confusion, an element of confusion where there needs not be confusion, okay? That's why cheating is bad, okay? That's a good one, Fenor. We can talk about that one. Let's save that one for the end because that's a meaty one. Someone else is breaking. Go ahead.
You talked about differences in cheating and glitching between divisions, but I've noticed in the past that even those rules that are grey are even different between 1st and 4th Battalion. So I've noticed that they allow some stuff in 4th and not in 1st. So it's really very different, even in a game.
In my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, having different standards within battalions is a bad idea. It causes issues down the road because you eventually will play together and there will be a point where there will be contention over those differences. Okay, so I would never endorse a division having differences between battalions. I would endorse differences between divisions when they made sense. Even games on the same platform, because sometimes, and what I mean by platform or engine or whatever you want to call it, because sometimes there are significant differences between games, and it's up. We put division commanders, division officers, and the other leaders in a division in place to make those determinations. That's why they're there. It's one of the most critical reasons why they're there. And so we trust them to analyze a situation critically and make the right call about a game and what's a good idea and what's not a good idea based on their experience and based on the 3 standards that I talked about. Cool. Okay, everybody still awake? We're moving on. Talk. Go
ahead. One question about the glitching thing. What happens if your division and your game decides, the officers, that they decide that what you're doing is a glitch, but if you're also trying to compete in kind of competitive play against other clans and they're doing that, and you're at a big disadvantage because they're glitching, but it's how they're playing the game. Like, is it still not okay to glitch if it's against your rules, or is there kind of like different rules for competitive play? Or
Ninja break. May I chime in?
Absolutely.
You know, it's all about integrity. If somebody is cheating or glitching, you don't really have to cheat or glitch. Even if you lose, I mean, at the very least, you can say that you were the better player at the end because you didn't have to resort to such methods, and you keep the integrity of TAW. And really, not only TAW, any clan, any squad. I mean, you know, you have to have integrity, and you know, other clans and squads are going to see that, and they're going to actually want to play with you because of that.
I think it's even more complicated than that. I think when I agree with you, Ninji. If you wanted to distill it down to a single answer, I would agree with you on that. However, I think a lot of it depends on what organization. If you're playing within like a governing body like CAL or something, where the governing body has basically or the gaming body has decided that this is a legit thing, you know, then it gets more complicated by the minute. None of these issues are simple, and that's why we have officers there to help wade through the mess that are those decisions. You know, and Road, for example, one of the things that could happen because of that is if you allowed certain types of behavior in competitive play and then that behavior starts to leach into non-competitive play, it becomes even more complicated. So there's no easy answer, no quick fix to any of these situations. And the point I want everybody to take away from this is it's a very, very complicated topic, and that's why I'm talking about it, because I want you guys to be thinking about it this way and asking these questions. I can't answer that question for you. I can't, because it's dependent on the situation. It's dependent on 100 different factors, okay? But the fact that you asked that question, you're recognizing how complex these issues are, and we're just scratching the surface of what kind of stuff can come up in a division. I'm going to cut it there on cheating. I want to keep moving on because we've got a lot to cover, and we can come back if there are other questions on that later on. Okay? So let's move on. The next topic in COE is on alliances or allegiances or whatever you want to call it. Okay? And the question I said, well, why don't we form alliances? Okay? And if you look there's sort of a little asterisk in the code of ethics that says to compromise TAW's identity. Okay? And that's important for a reason I'll get to in a second. Okay? But drilling down into alliances, okay, one of the reasons we don't actively go out and seek to make alliances, it's a couple things. The first one is about sovereignty, okay? The word sovereignty basically means our ability to maintain our own identity, to maintain our territory, to maintain our name, okay? Almost all alliances and relationships require some form of compromise, okay? The problem with compromise is it could potentially jeopardize our status as an organization. What I mean by that is, for exactly the reason that Rode brought up, right? If you're forming, you're going into a competition team, right, or competing against other teams, and one of the requirements to compete at that level is compromising on our cheating standards, right, or what we would consider glitching, okay? That's a compromise, right? In order to compete in that league, we're compromising part of who we are to compete in that league. Competitively, I mean, right? If it puts you at a major disadvantage. So that's a trade-off for getting involved in a team like that. But that may be something that the organization decides to do. But you need to be very careful when you make those types of decisions. So the reason I bring that up is you can see how very quickly these issues are interrelated, okay? Also, that's why every alliance has to be really reviewed, especially at the division level, but maybe even higher, depending on how complex those issues are, okay? Also, every time we form an alliance, okay, we potentially jeopardize our independence, okay? Everything in TAW is donated, from our time to our money to our knowledge, okay? We lose our self-reliance if we're counting on someone else for our development or our growth. If we're relying on somebody else to provide servers for us or somebody else to provide our competition avenues, if we can't create, we don't have enough players to make teams or compete, we're reliant on someone else to continue to do that. And if they stop doing that, it could jeopardize that team, okay, in a heartbeat. Also, same thing, we shouldn't let someone freeload off of our organization, okay, because we're giving away a part of who we are for free. If we let people come in here and use our TeamSpeak because, hey, we're an alliance, we're a team, part of using this TeamSpeak is committing to a team. That's what everyone on this channel has done. And if someone's allowed to come in here and continue to do that without that commitment, they're cheapening the commitment that you've made. Okay? If we allowed them to use our forums or our game servers or whatever, it's cheapening the commitment that everyone else has made or the money they've donated for the servers or any of that stuff. Okay? Yeah, right, good point, Fiona. It's expensive, right? A lot of this stuff costs money and it costs resources, not only in money but time and energy and frustration in all those things. And if we just let people get away with that, okay, we compromise, and compromising can cause problems, okay? Also, all right, every time we give someone special treatment too, okay, we compromise who we are. If you let a group say you let a group join, right, like a team of 20, a whole clan says, hey, we're going to join, but, we want to continue to play together. The answer should be no. Because what happens is you've compromised the program that you're currently running for those members, right? And you're giving them special treatment. And so the answer in those situations should unequivocally start with no, because of the problems that it causes down the road. I got to tell you guys, I've seen it probably 5 times, 10 times in TAW where we brought in groups of players and we've made compromises for them, and not one has ever worked. Because they didn't come through the same program that everybody else went through, and then everybody else in your division or your group looks at those members and goes, well, why do they get to come in? Why does that person suddenly get to become a leader because they were the leader of this other group? And well, why do they get to come in or continue to play with each other? Why do they get preferential treatment on the team? Ugh, that's just a start, okay? It goes downhill from there. Questions on alliances, allegiances, that kind of stuff. All right, moving on. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the chain of command. And for those that can't read the shirt, it says the chain of command, the chain I go get and beat you with until you understand who's in command here. No, anyway. Hopefully that's not been folks' experience in TAW, but in any event, the questions I asked about the chain of command was, well, why do we have a chain of command? And the second one is, why do we not pass over the chain of command? Okay. Again, right? Chain of command is something that a lot of people kind of just take for granted here. I mean, you come in, there's a pecking order, right? This guy's the boss, I'm not the boss, or I'm this guy's boss, or whatever the case may be, and you kind of live with it, right? Well, let's drill a little bit deeper than that. We need to look at why we do that, okay? Why we have a chain of command here, okay? Because I bet you never thought about it this way, or at least in these terms, okay? The first point I really want to make about chain of command, okay, is it creates what's called a duality within the structure, okay? And this is a really kind of advanced concept, all right? What I mean by duality is there's 2 sides to every division, okay? There's a military side or a battlefield command side, and there's an administrative side, okay? You can call it field leadership and staff leadership, or field leadership and administrative leadership. There's a bunch of different terms, but basically there's 2 parts to every division, okay? And sometimes the divisions aren't very easy to see, but they're always there, okay? And I cannot stress enough, as Theodore said, keeping separation between battlefield leadership and administrative leadership is probably one of the most important things you can ever do in an effective division, okay? But a COC allows us to do that, okay? In a lot of respects, it's like the real military, okay? And that there's a lot of folks behind the scenes making the system work, right? but it also allows for a clear delineation of duties, reporting, and responsibility, okay? So the two sides of the coin, one is the military structure, okay? A clear COC is critical because it allows orders to be followed, to flow down and to be followed immediately and without question, okay? I don't care whether you're in an MMO or an FPS, okay? When people are shooting at you, it's not the time to debate it, okay? If you've got, even in MMOs, right, you may think, everybody's waiting there, but you might have 25 people waiting there for you to make a decision, okay? 25 people twiddling their thumbs while you make a call. So if you don't have a clear structure in place to make the call instantly, you're going to frustrate those people, okay? In FPS divisions, though, it's very obvious. If you're trying to accomplish an objective or take a flag or, even orchestrate some sort of movement on the battlefield, it's not the time to sit down and go, I don't really think going the left makes a lot of sense. I think we should move from the right. We should just stop everything. Let's talk about this. While you're talking, you're probably going to get killed, okay? And if you think that, in the real military, that becomes even more important for obvious reasons, right? Because there are no respawns and, people's lives are on the line. So taking time to kind of, debate something is not acceptable, is not tolerated, and will probably, at a minimum, get you court-martialed, okay? Obviously, in TAW, though, we're playing a game, but the same principles apply. If you're trying to achieve or win, right, winning, you can't do that if you're sitting down and debating every decision that's made. Okay? And the point I want to make about this, and this is sort of another leadership boot camp, but this is a very command and control leadership style, and for good reason, right? This is, there's really if you consider a continuum of leadership styles, on the two ends, one is what's called command and control, which is very authoritative, and it's you will do what I say. And on the other side is what's called a democratic style leadership, which is a communal, decision-making hierarchy where we all agree on a decision, or there's more democratic type structure and debate about the decision-making. Okay, and you'll notice that they're very different than each other, and that's why in the administrative structure it tends to be more of a democratic style. Okay. I'm not saying it's totally that way, all right? Leaders are ultimately tasked with making a decision, okay? But my hope is that good leaders are sitting down and listening to input from, their members, their other leaders, before they make a decision, okay? It's the decision that's in the best interest of everyone, not just one person or one unit or what have you, okay? And again, TAW, as I say here, strives for a balance between this good-natured debate and progress in decisions, okay? And that's why there's a sliding scale of knowing when to make the call and knowing when to talk about it. If we talked about everything, we would never get anything done. But if we did command and control style for everything, we would have a lot of pissed off people and we wouldn't have functioning divisions. So again, it's all about moving the slider and understanding situationally what's the best technique to deal with a particular problem or issue, okay? But, okay, and this is the point I want to make here too, senior leadership especially relies on communication of ideas and compromise, okay? Especially at the central command level, but the TFO level as well, okay? Real leadership, all right, also is not about compromising all the time, but knowing when and when not to compromise. So you'll notice those points seem to be in contention with each other, and that's how complex some of these leadership topics get. I mean, there are situations where, Hook will say, yeah, no, Icarus, I agree with you. And there'll be situations where he said, no, I think we need to go this way. And, he's got a reason for that, and he tries to explain that, but, that's part of the give and take of being in a good leadership team is knowing when to apply each concept, okay? And in the right proportion. All right, moving on. Passing over the COC, okay? Why do we respect the COC? Why do we not pass over it, okay? Because this is something that every recruit's taught when they come into TAW. Well, the obvious reason, right, or one of the obvious reasons is it undermines authority, okay? And again, I don't mean this in the sort of the South Park Eric Cartman sense where, people are the big shot or, you got to respect their authority or whatever. It's not like that, okay? In the eyes of other people, when you undermine someone's authority, right, you undermine their capacity to issue command and control type decisions. and that's really important. Or even make a final determination on a democratic style decision, and they can't do their job. Okay, they cannot do their job if they're undermined. Okay, because I've run into leaders in TAW where commanding officers, XOs, were basically they've reached a decision that wow, people aren't listening to me. I have to step down, and that's a really tough thing to do. Okay. Also, the next thing is, okay, it destroys the flow of the COC, okay? Information flow is broken and it's not properly communicated, okay? Higher level officers are tasked with issues that should be handled by subordinates. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but let's face it, if Hook had to approve every application in TAW, how many people do you think would get in? I mean, he's a good guy, he gets a lot done, but let's be realistic, okay? That won't work. So I made that point, kind of a silly point, but I'm illustrating a larger issue, right? That a huge gambit of issues, not only just applications, need to be handled at the correct level. If they're not handled at the correct level, TAW grinds to a halt and we get nothing done. Okay? So it's important for an XO to handle personnel issues in their division. It's important for a DC to make the final call on a divisional matter. If every single one of those went up to the CC, went up to the Army Lieutenant Commander and the Army Commander, we would never get anything accomplished. Okay? And a lot of it's fundamentally about trust, right? Trusting those officers to make the right decision. Because if you don't trust them, you lose that efficiency. Okay? The system breaks down and it grinds to a halt. Okay? And this is an important point for those that are math folks. The decision-making cycle becomes multiplicative. I can't even say that word. Multiplicative. Anyway.
Multiplicative.
Multiplicative. Thank you. What I mean by that is if it takes a XO or a CO 1 minute to approve an application, by the time it gets to a DC, it can take 5 minutes or an hour. By the time it gets to a CC, it could take a day or a week. By the time it gets to Hook, it could take 2 weeks. Okay? So it gets blown out of proportion very, very quickly if all the decisions are moving up the chain. All right? I covered the trust thing. Okay. Other thoughts here, okay? I got to tell you, there are situations when breaking the COC becomes necessary, okay? I've done it myself. And this is one of those concepts Hook might, slap me upside the head for saying, but I've done it, okay? There are those situations, all right, where, the person immediately above you is not forwarding your concerns up, they're not being heard, okay? And, TAW works through those when they happen. I got to tell you, they've happened a lot less than when I was moving up the ranks, okay? But they sometimes do occur, okay? But the trick is to do it in a respectful way, to write an email, do something, and make sure that it's clear what you're communicating and not making a big deal out of it. But talking to another leader and letting them, get involved or help address the situation, okay? Because at the end of the day, you shouldn't be leaving if somebody's kind of, not forwarding your concerns up. But I got to tell you, though, if the person above that person says to drop it, you better drop it. Because what's going to happen is you're gonna cause more problems for yourself if you continue to try and move up the chain of command expecting a different answer. Because I got to tell you, if a problem works its way up to Hook, the first words that are going to be out of his mouth are going to be, "What did the DC say?" or "What did the officers say?" or "What did the AC say?" or "the ALC say?" That's all that's going to come out of his mouth, and that's it. He's period. And it's fundamentally about trust and trusting the leadership to make the right decision. Okay? All right, moving on. Any questions on COC stuff? Okay, moving on. Participation, okay? Why do we have mandatory events? Again, kind of a silly question, right? But we're going to drill down into a not-so-silly answer, okay? And also, how do we manage these real-life conflicts, okay? This is something I think folks will probably be a little more interested in, especially as leaders in TAW, because these tend to come up pretty commonly in divisions and decision-making as a leader in TAW. So, mandatory events, right? Well, why do we do them, okay? Well, the first answer, okay, is this is who we are. This is what fundamentally makes us different than everybody else out there, okay? is the commitment that each person makes to come and show up to an event and participate. Okay, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. Okay, the folks that created this place, okay, wanted to make us different, okay, wanted to make you a part of a real team. And the only way they can do that, or they could do that, was to make sure that you were there, okay? You can't form a team if people aren't showing up, okay? Also, and this kind of, again, restating sort of the obvious, you're demonstrating your commitment not only to that team, but also to TAW in the most simplistic and tangible way, right? You showed up. Right? It's like you have a job interview, okay, and you don't show up. What kind of message does that send to somebody that wants to hire you? It says, well, I don't care about the job. Right? Basically, that's it. That's all it says. I don't care. Your time is not worth my time. And so that's really a horrible thing to tell your teammates and the other members of your division, and that's why we ask that you be here. It's no more complicated than that. All right? And fundamentally, right, this is another really important point. This is like the one thing that we ask of our members to give to TAW, right? We don't ask you for money. We don't ask you to be a leader. Well, we like you to be a leader, but we don't force you to be a leader, okay? This is the one thing we basically force members to do, is show up. We don't force you to play well. We don't force you to practice on your spare time. This is it. All we ask is that you show up and participate, okay? And that's a really important point to make, because a lot of people kind of blow this way out of proportion, but it doesn't need to be. That's it. That's the baseline. And if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be here, okay? Now, what it gives us is the ability to run regular internal and external competitions, okay, which is like the bedrock, the bread and butter of who we are. If people aren't showing up, you can't run competitions, okay? Also, right, if folks aren't showing up, you get these issues of fairness, inclusiveness, okay? And these same folks aren't willing to make a commitment. It destroys the fundamental premise of a division. And people talk about bad apples and things like that. That's why we have the discharge button, or we put people on leave. Because the worst thing you can do, okay, is say, I'm going to be there and then not be there, okay? It's different when you say, look, hey, I can't make it, can you find somebody to fill my spot? Great. But when it's tournament time or match time and you can't make it or you can't compete, you just screwed over your team in a big way. And that, I don't have a lot of patience for that, nor do most leaders in TAW. And that's why, they put so much effort and energy into attendance. And a lot of folks don't realize that. It's the damage that it does. They think it's a casual thing. I'll just go out to a move and I won't let somebody know, or I won't send a note. Well, it does more damage than you think it does. In just the chaos and confusion of trying to replace you and the message that it sends to your teammates about, whether or not you care, okay? So let's see, moving on here. Real life versus participation, this is kind of a serious issue too, because, at face value, it would seem that the COE is kind of at odds with itself, right? We emphasize attending regular events, but also there's this line in there about real life comes first, right? And so people often ask me, they say, well, that doesn't make any sense. You can't have one without the, can't have one with the other, right? They seem to be mutually exclusive. And my point to them is no, they're really not, because they both work together, okay? What I mean by that is we expect you to attend regular events, okay? But if you have a real-life issue, part of that is weighing and letting kind of the scale swing one way or the other. And here's what I mean, okay, the practical application of this, okay? The division, the team, or the squad have to come first, okay? And this is kind of, this is sort of a dirty thing that I'm saying right now, right? Because as far as the COE is concerned, right, you should be showing up. You're supposed to attend events, but we also say, well, real life comes first, so cool, right? Well, no, not really. And practically speaking, what's going to happen is we have all these other conduits to deal with folks that have real-life issues, right? We have a leave system. We've got flexible practice schedules. We've got, you can make an agreement with the division. You could come over and join OS. You can retire. I mean, there's all sorts of different things you can do, right? And that's where that real-life comes first part comes in, right? I mean, it's fine if, something comes up and you can't make a practice, but if you're continually, habitually not able to make practice, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your division to raise your hand and say, hey, look, I can't make it anymore. and we'll find something for you to do. We'll find a way for you to contribute. Heck, I always want people to come over and help an OS. Like, I always need the help, okay? I agree that it's tough, okay, and it's especially tough being an international clan, okay? That makes it even harder, especially when you're playing in a time zone that doesn't agree with your schedule, okay? But at the end of the day, you know, there are ways to address that. You know, you make the time, or you could try to put together a team of people that have similar time commitments and things like that. And I applaud those folks that go out of their way to make the practices. I really do. Like, there's no better member, in my opinion, than those folks that are able to make that commitment and make that effort. And so my hat's off to those folks. But again, the point of this discussion, guys, is for you to realize how complex some of these issues become, right? It's not just about one or the other. It's not just about attendance. It's not just about real-life issues. It's how they intertwine with each other and how complex they can be and how hard they can be to deal with, right? Because the worst thing that you can have to do as a leader sometimes is go into a member and say, look, man, I hate to do this to you, but you know, you kind of have to make up your mind. You're going to either be here or you're not going to be here. And sometimes these are the nicest people in the world that you're having to deal with these issues with. But that's who we are. That's how we handle, you know, and that's how we can keep these teams strong, is by kind of biting the bullet and going and dealing with those issues, even when we don't want to. Okay? Next one. Leadership and promotions, okay? My question was, why is time and TAW not included in the criteria for leadership positions? I mean, it would seem to make sense, right? I mean, you're here longer. You've been here for 2 years. Let's say you've been in division for 2 years. Shouldn't you get preference over somebody that's been here for 2 months? I mean, that would make sense, right? Well, interestingly enough, if you look at the COE, one of the things is you're going to see under the promotions criteria, you'll see attendance listed, which basically translates to, you know, showing up, right? Or time and TAW, okay? But in the leadership criteria, it's not there, okay? And a lot of people seem to find that as some big surprise, like we made a mistake, or you know, the founders or when they wrote the COE made a big mistake. And interestingly enough, they didn't, okay? And here's the reason, okay? The big issue with time and TAW as a measure, okay, is it often conflicts with the first measure, right, which is ability, right? If somebody doesn't have the ability to be a leader, I don't care how long they've been in TAW. They could have been in TAW for 5 years. I know some folks that have been in TAW for a couple of years that are not good leaders, okay? And that's okay. Not everybody's, you know, ready to be a leader, okay? Sorry. It's not a slight on your abilities. It's not a slight on your personality. It's not a slight on anything. It's just, it's not the right fit, okay? And there are other ways for those folks to contribute. And a lot of those people are phenomenal contributors to their division through their attendance, through their time, through their personality, through the fun they bring, but they're not leaders, okay? Second thing is, okay, it's been proven conclusively there is no correlation between time and TAW and leadership ability, okay? The fact that you've been here longer does not make you a better leader, okay? I want folks to really recognize this, okay? Period. There is no correlation whatsoever. Being in TAW does not, by default, make you a better leader, okay? And I want folks to recognize this. Also, everyone has different potential at different times in their life, okay? And people grow their leadership skills at different rates, or frankly, not at all, okay? This is also really important. Some folks come in, they're born leaders, okay? Some folks come in, they grow into leaders. Some folks come in and will never be leaders, okay? That's okay. And we as a community need to accept that fact and stop putting people into positions that have just been here, or just because it's their turn. That's the worst mistake you can ever make, okay? You know, we do not have seniority here. We do not give people positions based on their time. It is not your turn, okay? I'm sorry. And if this offends people, I'm sorry. But this is part of, you know, kind of stating the really kind of important truth of it all. That I've dealt with a lot of people, okay, that were put into positions that weren't cut out for positions. And if you go back to Fox's maxims, okay, one of the things he says is it's about 10 times harder to take somebody out of a position than it is to put them in a position for just that reason. And it's the E word. It's called entitlement. And that's a whole separate leadership university topic thing that I won't go into, but that's kind of segueing into I think what Sooner's going to talk about a little bit in the next one next week. Okay. And the last point here is, okay, as I kind of alluded to or danced around, is we're not a workers union. Okay, we don't give people positions based on time and grade. Okay, fundamentally, and these are the words of the immortal Fox, is it would be suicide for us to do that. Okay, there is no faster way to just set off a nuclear weapon than to do that. Okay, because you put the worst people in the jobs, and it just becomes a mess real fast. They start promoting their friends, and it just snowballs very, very quickly. And so it's just, I'm saying it one more time for emphasis, that this is the worst thing you could do in a volunteer organization. No one here is getting paid to put up with other people. And so we have to be really genuine about who we put where. Any questions? Okay, cool. Next one, conduct, right? Why do we treat non-TAW members with the same respect as TAW members? This is an interesting question that kind of comes out of the conduct line in the COE. A lot of folks don't have a good answer for this, right? I mean, and I know a lot of folks, and probably some in this channel, and many other people I know have treated others badly outside the TAW community, okay? Well, I'm here to tell you why we shouldn't do that, okay? And it's probably more complex than you thought. Maybe not, but let's drill into the issues. Okay? Again, as we talked about really early on in the presentation, right? Your actions are reflective of the whole organization. So, again, if you're wearing your United Way jacket, or your what's the Santa or Christmas Santa, whatever, and people, what are the people that collect the money at the malls and stuff like that?
Salvation Army.
Salvation Army, thank you. If you're wearing your red Salvation Army jacket, right, and you're behaving badly, people are going to think that everybody in the Salvation Army, or any group for that matter, behaves badly. Okay, and okay, so let's look at these points here. Remember, you represent TAW in all that you do. Okay, duh. All right, but as I said before, it's not fair, but people will base their opinion of actually now it's 900 plus member organization based on the actions of one member. And this is the most ridiculous thing, and it's totally unfair, but they do it, okay? And again, those same people will take that opinion away and out of your control. And this is really important, okay? While you're interacting with someone, okay, that's the only window you have within your control to influence that person's opinion, right? When they leave, you've lost that ability. And so what they go do with that opinion is entirely up to them. It could be 2 forum posts later where, they've slammed or condemned every member of your organization based off of that opinion, okay? And yes, as many people have pasted at the bottom, these non-TAW members are future TAW members, okay? Every person you meet could be a potential future TAW member. And interestingly enough, and this is something I task everybody to go do, go talk to a new recruit. Say, what about, why'd you join up? And you'll get the usual, oh, well, I checked out the website, it looked cool, or I saw your server, or whatever, but sometimes it's, you're going to get the answer like, oh, well, I was really struggling in the game, and one of your members took the time to answer a question for me. I mean, it's amazing, guys. You can be in a server with 30 people, and somebody asks a question about a weapon, and after the chat, after the 15 lines of laughing, okay, or poking fun at, or ribbing on somebody, there's the one person that says, yeah, man, if you bind it this way or you shoot it this way, you'll do much better. Or they private message them or whatever. That's it. You sold it right there, okay? You just made a new TAW member, all right? And they may not put your name on their application, okay, but you did it right then and there. And that's why every minute of every day your behavior is so important, and taking the time to help people or to answer questions or to behave well. And that's why, frankly, I task you guys as leaders as well with, making sure that other people in your divisions toe the line too. Because if you see somebody behaving badly, I don't care if you're a PFC or recruit, you should pull them out of channel and give them what for. Because, you should explain to them straight up and say, look, man, you're making me look bad, and I don't appreciate it. And if they give you a hard time, go talk to one of your leaders. Go talk to your CO or your XO, okay? Because there's no excuse for behaving badly, regardless of the situation, okay? Because they're making you look bad, and you shouldn't tolerate it. Because if we continue to tolerate that kind of behavior in our teams, it snowballs out of control, and they're representing you every time they go out. So every good deed that you do, or every 10 good deeds that you do, are undone by one doofus or bonehead move by this one person, okay? There you have it. All right. So we're coming into the last topic here, and then we can turn the floor over to questions, and that is on moonlighting, okay? So this is a topic that's actually right after I want to make a point there that was in channel. Sol made a good point there. Bad rep spreads faster than good, and I couldn't agree more. Okay, so if that's why you need to get on people about that. Is, as I said, for every one bonehead move they pull, 10 good things get ruined. Okay, so let's talk about moonlighting. Okay, this is kind of the current topic that's going on in TFO, if you can believe it. A lot of folks are talking about this, about debating the moonlight policy and the ins and outs of it. And so I wanted to really drill into this one in more detail. Okay. And again, you may not agree with everything I say here, but I want to talk about the moonlighting policy because this is the one I think that confuses people the most out of all of them, simply because, number one, they may not understand what moonlighting is, first of all, and oftentimes we don't do a good job of explaining it. I honestly think our policy could be a little better explaining what it is, but more fundamentally, you also kind of need to understand why we don't allow it, okay? And it's a really complex issue. And it's broken down, in my opinion, into 3 parts, okay? Number one, and you saw this talked about in the forum post if you have access to TFO, but it's sharing material and knowledge resources, okay? TAW tactics, experience, structure, et cetera, okay? The second one is splitting of time, and I'm going to drill into each of these in more detail, but next one is splitting of time and energy, right? Individuals that could be contributing to TAW are choosing not to, okay? And last but not least is conflict of interest, okay? Decision-making, especially leadership decision-making, is often impaired, okay? So, yeah, again, for those that don't know, thank you, and I don't dare try to pronounce your name, but can you pronounce that for me, man, just so I learn it? Biasu, is that it?
Bye. See you.
Oh, bye, see, okay, sorry. Thank you, man. Yeah, just to make the point, I didn't describe what moonlighting was. Yeah, it's basically playing in another clan that we play in. So, for example, if you play World of Warcraft but you're also playing in a Quake Wars clan, except we have a Quake Wars division, right? So that's moonlighting in its most simple form, okay? It's a game that we offer. And when the MMOs, it gets a little more complicated, but I'll get into that in a second, okay? So let's talk about material and knowledge, because this is something that Hook was talking about in the TFO forums, and I wanted to kind of drill into this a little bit more. We as an organization, okay, every member in TAW has worked very hard to accumulate the knowledge and experience we have, right? And you can break it up into 2 pieces. The first one's hard knowledge, okay? It's our structure, our ranks, our rules, our promotions, our medals, our badges, everything, right? That's hard knowledge. It's who we are, our structure, the bare bones, words, text, pictures, graphics. It's our structure, right? And the other one is the soft knowledge, right? And I wrote a little line here. I said, structure, ranks, and rules does not a community make. What I mean by that is who we are is not the hard rules, okay? It's the hard rules and the soft, it's not just the hard knowledge, it's the hard and the soft knowledge. The soft knowledge is leadership, decision-making, coaching, time, all that stuff, right? Experience. It's what we're doing right now. I mean, there are what? 34 people in this channel taking their time to listen and learn about a topic, right? That's soft knowledge, okay? and it's just as important, or not, if not more important than hard knowledge in a lot of cases, okay? The issue comes in, though, that both are very high-value resources that end up being compromised, okay, if somebody's moonlighting. Because inadvertently or advertently, if someone's working on another team, okay, they could be compromising who we are, compromising that knowledge, okay? Even by taking the time to say, hey, why don't you try it this way? Or why don't you try, I saw a team do this once, and right there, you've compromised it, right? Or you're in a leadership meeting for this other clan, and you say, well, why don't we set up a CO, XO, SO or something, right there, you've compromised part of who we are, okay? And yeah, in a lot of respects, though, it's flattering that you think that by applying those concepts elsewhere that people can mimic who we are, but they won't be able to do it because they're not us and they don't have all the other elements. And so it can often cause more harm than good by trying to incorporate those elements in, okay? So let's talk about the next topic, okay? And there's actually a line in the policy about compromising material and knowledge as well. So this is kind of double covered in the policy because that's why it's taken so seriously. So it's not the be-all and end-all of moonlighting, though, okay? It really isn't. It's just one part of it. The second part of it is splitting of time and energy, okay? This is what I mean by that is time and energy that could go into making TAW better, okay, or not. So, for example, and this is not just leadership. This is not just, you guys as future leaders or whatever, okay? It's everything. Even a member, a PFC, right? They put in time and energy, practice time, time in TeamSpeak, friendship, right? All those things. They're spending time that could have been spent with the team that we provide. So let's say somebody's in, in X division, right? And they're playing on a Quake Wars team. Well, they could be playing with our Quake Wars team and contributing their time and their energy to our team, making it a better place. So they're withholding that time and energy from our team, okay? And they could be devoting it to that team, okay? Now, what happens because of this, though, is the potential to come second to another organization, okay? So, for example, our Quake Wars team is coming second to their Quake Wars team, okay? Now, fundamentally, is this selfish? Absolutely, right? I kid you not, okay? This is totally selfish. But this is how TAW preserves its unity, its structure, and its image, right? And who we are is we have to be selfish about this stuff, okay? Because if we don't, okay, what happens is we get folks that are splitting their time all over the place, and it doesn't congeal. You get no team structure, no cohesiveness within a unit, okay? The point I want to make, though, about it being selfish, and a lot of people who are caught moonlighting or thinking about moonlighting, whatever, kind of say, well, they can't tell me what to do, or they shouldn't be able to, they shouldn't be able to, tell me what I'm doing on my free time. Fine, right? But at the same time, nobody forced you to join this team, okay? Nobody forced you to join TAW. And this is kind of the killer counterpoint to that argument, that part of making the commitment, okay, is agreeing to not moonlight, all right? So basically, they're lying about that commitment, and it ultimately cheapens it, right, for everybody else, all right? Now, this gets even more complicated, though, because there's a big difference between pre-existing relationships and those formed after. And what I mean by this is if somebody comes into TAW with that relationship already formed with that other group, it's one issue. But if they go off and form a relationship or moonlight after they've joined TAW, that's a different issue. In my opinion, a worse issue, because you already knew better, and then you went off and did it, right? I don't have any patience for those folks. I have some patience for the folks that play with other teams, that have friends, and I'm willing to hear them out. But on other folks, for the folks that go out and actively seek another team and actively seek to compete against us, the door's that way, okay? And I think probably most folks in this channel would react the same way. Now, this gets also even more complicated when leadership are involved, right? Because it's one thing when a new recruit gets caught doing something like this, or people know that they're doing this, but it's totally different when an officer or a leader is doing something like this. Because we talked earlier about undermining authority and respect, okay? nothing undermines authority and respect faster than this, okay? Because what it basically does is it broadcasts to the world that I don't care about you. And they may care, okay? But again, perception's 9/10 the law with all this stuff, okay? With all the things, the COE and everything else. And if somebody's already made up their mind or they're perceiving you a certain way, it doesn't matter whether you're doing it or not, right? It doesn't matter. And think about it from the cheating perspective too, okay? It doesn't matter in a lot of respects whether you're cheating or not if they think you are. Do you guys understand what I'm saying about this? Because it's destructive. It's just as destructive either way. If they've made up their decision, you're doomed. Okay? And this is why these issues get so complicated, because I've dealt with situations where, people have been accused of cheating, okay, and we've conclusively proved they're not, but it doesn't matter. The division's made up that they are, okay? And so there's no worse issue to deal with as an officer than that type of situation, where you're like, look, man, I don't know what to tell you, okay? They think you're cheating. I know you're not. We looked at it. You're not. Okay, you're a very talented player, but they've made up your mind, and folks have left over that, and it's so sad when it happens. But it's one of the worst things to deal with. And again, as I said, perception is 9/10 the law, and it's what we deal with on a daily basis. Okay. So the last part of this issue, and that makes it even more complex, is this issue of conflict of interest. Okay. What I mean by that is experiences are based off the fusion. Or sorry, I'm run-on sentence here. When somebody is in another program, okay, for example, let's say that if someone's in Division X, right, and I'll use Quake Wars again as an example, they're off moonlighting in Quake Wars, okay, and they're both FPS divisions, right? Their experience, especially if they're a leader, right, becomes a fusion of those two distinct programs. What I mean by that is one group may do something one way, and another group may do something another way, okay? And so that can have its pros and cons, right? They may learn something from the other team that they can then bring to TAW, right? A new technique or a new style, something like that. But it also can have cons where they're not really with the program, right? And that's where I said confusion over models, methods, and goals. They're not following the model that the other leadership in that division is trying to build, or even a regular member, right? They're not with the program because their mind's caught up in another program, or they see it being done another way, and in essence, they're constantly comparing what we do to what this other unit does. And so it provides a basis to be constantly negative. Every time they don't agree with something, they go, oh, well, this other clan does it this way. Obviously, they don't say that out loud because they're moonlighting, but they're in their own mind, they're constantly comparing us to somebody else. Hopefully, we're exceeding that group in every capacity, but if we're not, that becomes a point of division, okay? And so, again, it's even worse with a leader, though, because if they're adopting leadership styles or techniques that are fundamentally different than the way a division or whatever is trying to run, it becomes even more complicated because they're trying to apply a leadership methodology that the rest of the division isn't. And so it becomes very complicated, and you get issues cropping up from that as well. Okay? So as I said, what that ultimately ends up doing, though, is it potentially jeopardizes a leader's ability to embrace the TAW program and methodology, okay? And although you perhaps don't see it as a leader, there is an underlying methodology to who we are and how we operate, okay? And it's important as a leader that you adopt that methodology, or it won't work. You won't be successful here. Also, we're ultimately putting the person in the position of having to choose between TAW and another group, right? Between their time, their play time, their commitment, their energy, all that stuff. And so nothing's more destructive than forcing somebody to choose, right? I mean, it's like a bad romance or something, or a bad soap opera. Well, you got to choose me or that person. I mean, there's nothing worse that you can do to somebody than that. And it's the same thing, right? You're forcing somebody to make a decision, and it can be really destructive. So better to not get into that situation in the first place, or try to avoid those situations at all costs because they get so nasty down the road. Okay? Cool. Well, guys, you stuck with me through thick and thin. We're through. And so I guess now I wanted to open the floor up for questions.
Ready to go, folks?
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I got a question for you. During one of the boot camps I was doing, during it we had a recruit or an applicant ask on clarification as to a section that's listed in the TAW Code of Ethics. And it specifically states when a policy cannot be found regarding an issue, the art of warfare, then Section 3 of TAW policy will take effect. They asked me to clarify what Section 3 of the TAW policy was, and when I attempted to find it, I found multiple Section 3s and couldn't figure out which one was the right section to refer to answer said applicant's request.
It's a very good question. Actually, this is it has already been corrected in our policy review, but what it's referring to is that all orders will be followed is basically the section it's referring to. So that's it. Well, it's basically was designed to be a catch-all. I think that was added to the policy actually fairly recently when we had an issue of contention with a member where basically a member said, well, you can't make me do that. It's not in policy. And the answer was, yeah, we can. And that was, same thing like going back to, my conversation with a division leader the other day about, making rules for their division, right? If your DC tells you that this is the rule, that's the rule. Unless it's specifically counter to policy, then it's the rule. Sorry, you're in their division. And if you've got an issue with the rule, you can take it up with your COC, but the policy is a guide. It's not the be-all and end-all. And so if command tells you to do something, you go do it. And that's the point of that kind of catch-all, is that what we can't do is lead our divisions from policy, right? They're not a guide to running an effective division. Far from it, actually. And so they're a reference document when critical decisions need to be made, or and it's the core elements of policy, core elements of rules, right? They're the framework. Think of it as the scaffolding to a building, right? Yet when you're in your division is what puts the walls up, the roofs up, the wallpaper on. They provide color and texture to those rules, and they flesh them out. It's almost in a lot of respects for those that live in the U.S., it's the same concept with the U.S. Constitution, in that the U.S. Constitution in a lot of respects is not a very specific document. It's a framework document. It's designed to apply certain concepts and certain specific things and then be expanded on and interpreted as time goes on. And that's the same concept with policy. So it's a long answer to your question, but that's what it refers to. And I can guarantee to you that will be addressed in the policy rework coming up.
Thank you.
Other questions? Anything you guys want to know about the Code of Ethics? Time to ask. I might be able to answer, I might not, but...
They're just being shy.
Well, don't be shy.
I'll break.
Good. Go ahead, Fiona.
All right. What is the appropriate way to file a complaint or talk about a problem you're having, or possibly even process some kind of, complaint with another member or a non-member, or, this could cover anything. It could cover personal problems, problems with the chain of command, cheating accusations, all kinds of stuff. What is the proper way to do that, and what should you not do?
Good question. I'm going to give kind of a cookie-cutter answer here, and then I'll expand on a little bit. The first thing I will answer the question by saying what you shouldn't do, okay, is yell about it in TeamSpeak, post it on the forums, email everybody, the list goes on, okay? Those are the mass communication methods. I got to tell you, nothing will get you a first-class ticket out of here faster than that, okay? I don't care how valid your argument is. No one's going to listen to you, because you've done too much to harm the perspective on the issue that you're not going to get the response that you're looking for, okay? Sensationalizing an issue never fixed it in all my years of time here, okay? And frankly, it's not going to get people on your side, all right? And it's not going to get you an answer, all right? How you go about it, first thing is to talk to your COC, okay? Again, this is the cookie cutter answer. And we talked a little bit about, skipping over your COC. And remember, guys, there's a policy rule, all right, that if somebody basically sends you a note that says, and again, if you've got a grievance, especially with your commanding officer, you're supposed to write it down, okay, in an email, and they are by policy required to forward that up the chain of command to the next level. If they do not, it's their butt in a sling, not yours, okay? And so if you give them a reasonable amount of time, whether it be a week or whatever, 2 weeks to forward it up, and they don't do it, they're going to be in deep, deep trouble, okay? So if you've got agreements with another member, though, obviously talking to your officer in your division is the best way to go about it. What I don't encourage, okay, especially if it's a member in another division, is going over and talking to an officer or a leader in that division, okay, because they're not in your chain of command, okay, and you're going to also do more harm than good. I've seen countless examples in TAW where somebody's gone and complained to another division leader and not gotten the right reaction. There's a reason why we have corps commanders, okay? It's to help address these issues. And you may think, oh, man, well, it's just an argument between, two PFCs or something. Why do we need to get a corps commander involved? Well, I'll tell you why. Because nothing causes bigger problems in TAW than interdivisional issues, okay? So what you do is you send it up the chain of command, and it may go all the way up to the corps commanders, okay? That's okay. That's why they're there. It gives them something to do. No. They're there to make sure that they facilitate those lines of communication, that the issue gets resolved in a fair and reasonable way, okay? They're making sure that the leaders know what's going on within the divisions, because if you go and talk to an XO in another division, right, say, for example, Division X, and you're in Division X, you've got a problem with a member in Division Y, you go talk to their XO or CO, right? It may seem like, oh, this is a quick way to get the problem fixed. Well, next, that CO or XO may be talking to your CO or XO, or that member in Y division may be talking to your CO or your XO, and then they're talking to you, and they're talking to him. You can see how quickly this gets to become really, really complicated, and not a lot gets done other than people start yelling at each other, okay? You have to use the chain of command, and that's why we have it, okay? If you don't use it, you're going to, again, it's just a recipe for disaster, okay? Aside from the fact that, the trouble issues and all that stuff, it's more fundamental than that. The lines of communication break down, and an issue ends up being 5 times more complicated than it needs to be because it didn't follow the right channels, okay? Members outside of TAW, also, if you use your COC, often we have connections with a lot of members and leadership in outside of TAW, okay? I remember back when I was a leader in Far Cry Division, I was the division commander, okay? If folks had issues with other division commanders, I was on a first-name basis with a lot of the other leaders from other clans, okay? We respected each other's outfits quite a bit. And I got to tell you, if somebody came to me and reported problems with a member, I could go directly to them and deal with it. And you wouldn't believe how quick issues got resolved that way, okay? So that's why we use our chain of command, because there may be resources out there more than you may realize, okay? Use the chain of command. So it's a bit of a cookie-cutter answer, but I hope that addressed it, Fina.
Yeah, I just think that it's really important, especially though, because, the forums, I mean, a lot of people think that it's okay to post, gripes, complaints, or any kind of inappropriate material on the member forums because, public and the recruits can't see it. It's not good either. I mean, like Icarus says, we have a chain of command, and at least that's just my 2 cents. Keep that stuff off the forums completely, all kinds of stuff. Complaints, any kind of cheating accusation or discussion. If you have, suggestion, or if you're being critical about something, or I don't like the way we were doing this event, let's do it differently. And I just seen a lot of drama come from, stuff being posted on the forums.
I got to tell you guys, let me follow up by saying, it may be overstating, but I could honestly say I haven't seen really any major problem ever be fully resolved in the forums. And that is not an overstatement. I kid you not. It just never happens, okay? And this, I won't get into a whole, social, discussion on this, but typing can be misconstrued, taken the wrong way, whatever, right? And that's just the beginning, okay? The most best way to resolve an issue is in a TeamSpeak channel. It always has been, always will be. That's why we pay for it, so you guys can come and talk and play together and resolve issues, okay? It's really, really important that you use a TeamSpeak, you use your COC, and you follow it up with verbal communication, not a forum post, okay? It just doesn't get the job done. I'm sorry, doesn't get it done. Next, I think somebody broke in. Let me hit Depiction X here real quick. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add to that. I noticed a lot of times when people post on the forums their complaints or their gripes, they're usually looking to get attention. Well, that's just the problem with doing it that way. You're going to get attention, but it's very seldom is it going to be the kind of attention you want. So keep that in mind. Take it to the chain of command like they're saying. I mean, that's if your gripe and your complaint is legit, then hopefully your whole reasoning behind it is legit as well, and you want to see a resolution to it. And the only way you're going to get that resolution is to bring it to the chain of command. You're not going to get it by ranting and raving. I mean, it's never been that way, and never will be.
More fundamentally as well, your officers aren't going to appreciate because you just made their job harder. Okay.
Absolutely.
And they don't appreciate that. So, yeah, Depiction, you had a question. Go for it.
It actually wasn't me. It was one of the other members from below, Secret Reeve. Hold on, let me scroll up and find it real quick.
No, I'm good. It got off.
Oh, there you go. Secret Reeve can take care of it then.
Yeah, I'm good. I talked about that, complaints to other clans, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, again, you'd be surprised. I mean, you probably talk to any DC, they'll say, yeah, I pretty much have talked to most of the leaders in these clans, so if it's a big issue, they can fix it. They often really can. And yeah, sometimes there's bad blood and other issues that crop up, but most folks that are DCs try to foster good relationships with other clans for just that reason, right? I mean, we all have to swim in the same pool, so it pays to be on a first-name basis and be congenial with each other. Jay West, was that a real question, or did? Oh, not a serious question. Okay, go ahead, whoever broke.
Got a question.
Hold on one swamp. Go ahead.
We're playing on our server like NA ranked, like I usually play in the early morning, and there's somebody on there just happens just to pop in, and I kind of think they're kind of cheating some way because they just come in and they're running around backstabbing everybody, running like 50 times faster than you, and there's no admins in there, boot them or whatever. What do? You just send an email and report them, or what?
That's what I would do. I would also follow up and talk with your leadership. And the other thing too, what you're doing by talking to them and highlighting the issue is doing two things, right? Number one, it allows them to go look up the IP and ban that person. But more importantly, you're highlighting the fact to them that you play at a time that's different perhaps than other people in your division, and they might look at that as an opportunity to, explore potentially down the road getting you admin so that they can have more folks on the servers with admin at different times. So it's a win-win for you by going to talk to somebody.
I was just wondering because a lot of times I play off of work between 1 and 4 o'clock in the morning.
Sure. No, that's definitely an odd time for a lot of folks. So all the more reason to bring it up and try to keep the servers as clean as you can. And it depends on the game, and some are easier to deal with cheaters like that than others. But and also, as folks are saying, taking a video or getting some screenshots, that's great too. Definitely anything you can do to get some proof is excellent. But again, if it's just a pub player, it's worse if it's another person from another clan or whatever. Then it becomes more complicated. But if it's just some pub player, oftentimes you just ban them. I mean, it's just not even worth debating about. So, yep, don't post in the forums, email them, talk to them in TeamSpeak. You got it. You get your answers down in chat there. So, next question. Anybody else?
It's not actually on par with what you're saying, but I'm kind of curious. I've got to leave for Oregon here shortly, and I was just wondering if I'll still get the attendance for showing up, even if I have to leave now.
Yep, most definitely. Everyone gets attendance for being here, so thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.
All right. Ben Swampfire checking out. Thanks for going over that. I really appreciate listening to you guys talk about this stuff.
Roger that. Thank you for coming.
All right. Take care, guys.
Other questions?
Break those.
Go ahead, sir.
I hope you don't mind. I've been recording this. I'd like to share this with my division for a lot of those that are not here. This may result in a few more questions coming up than that have not been covered here. And if you don't mind, I'd like to email those questions to you. But I'd definitely like to share this university meeting with my division, if you don't mind.
Sure. No, that's what it's here for. What I'd like to do is figure out a way with somebody to kind of marry it up with the slides, if I could. If somebody's comfortable doing that or knows how to do that, that would be great. You know, to do like a, I don't know, we'll figure out something. Cool. Other questions? I don't want to keep folks too much longer. I've, you know, it's been, what, an hour plus? All right. I'll stick around for folks if they've got other questions. Again, guys, I just want to reiterate, you know, for those, there's there are no correct answers to all this stuff, okay? There are often many correct answers or many interpretations, and that's part of being a leader. That's part of learning, is learning. You know, sometimes it's hard to make the right call. Sometimes it's hard to make the right decision, but you got resources everywhere throughout the organization. And I will tell you right now, there's not a single person in this channel or throughout TAW that won't take the time or shouldn't take the time to sit down with you and answer an honest question about this kind of stuff. Because there's a huge body of experience here, and folks are more than happy to take the time to help you work through an issue. And, you know, just because people, you know, from another division or any of that, just go talk to them. It's okay. You know, there's respecting the COC, and then there's going crazy. You know, we're all on the same team. We're all in the same community, and we're all, you know, we can work together that way. So in any event, let me turn it back over to Hook. I think he wants to close it out.
Yeah, good stuff, Icarus, man. I greatly appreciate not only the topic that you chose to talk about today, but the time that you took to prepare and put all that together. Great stuff. Really, really good stuff. Just a reminder, next week, same time, guys, Sooner is going to be discussing a few things with us, so I know he's put some time and effort into his as well, and it's going to be some great stuff. So, you know, again, thanks for showing up, you guys. You are the future of TAW. I mean, guys like you that are taking the time to come and listen to, you know, some rather boring stuff, but some really vital stuff to TAW. If you're taking the time to come listen to it, that's encouraging to us to know that not only is the time that we're putting into all this worth it, but that there's guys going to be willing to step up one day and keep the torch going. So, you know, we can't say thanks enough for the fact that you guys are showing up and participating. So, see you all next week. And you know, Sooner, I wish he was here to kind of promo his thing. He sent me a DEFCON 5 message a while ago. His wife's car has some issues, so that's code for I'm not about to tick the wife off and put TAW first. So there's a good real life comes before TAW lesson for you right there. Anyway, see you guys next week. Thanks.
Woo!